And I now give the floor to the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
Madam President, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela has the honor to take the floor on behalf of the group of friends in defense of the Charter of the United Nations, whose member states express their gratitude for the convening of this high-level open debate on such an important subject, whilst also expressing their appreciation for the briefings received earlier today, including from the Secretary-General. Madam President, in recent years, the mandates of United Nations peacekeeping operations have been changing in scope, from their traditional role of holding ceasefires to a variety of complex tasks that, in many cases, fall within the competence of host states, ranging from the monitoring of elections, the strengthening of the rule of law, the implementation of demobilization, disarmament, and reconciliation programs, as well as the protection of civilians, which is, no doubt, a primary responsibility of host states. But there are situations, however, where the intensity of a given armed conflict makes it nearly impossible for states to actually provide for and ensure the protection of their civilians, as is the case in Palestine. In this context, we seize this opportunity to reiterate our call for the provision of international protection for the Palestinian civilian population in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, in accordance with international law, including international humanitarian law, and on the basis of relevant General Assembly and Security Council resolutions. Having said that, we cannot overemphasize that these latest changes in the way that UN peacekeeping missions operate must be approached with great caution and with strict adherence to the purposes and principles enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations in their entirety and interconnectedness, and among others those referring to the sovereignty, territorial integrity, as well as the political independence of states, as well as non-interference in the internal affairs of states. This applies to any measure which may be proposed or adopted as part of so-called preventive diplomacy, which, if recent history is anything to go by, has been misused and abused for the sole purpose of advancing interventionist and rather narrow political agendas. Likewise, the principles governing the general framework of peacekeeping operations, including the consent of the parties, impartiality, and the non-use of force, except in situations of self-defense, must be rigorously observed. Only in this way can the legitimacy and efficiency of the United Nations in the field be strengthened, while guaranteeing at the same time the sovereignty and independence of the nations in which such missions are deployed. This is critical to avoid situations of both mistrust and misperception amongst local populations and/or host countries of peacekeeping missions being misused as tools for meddling in matters that are essentially within their very own domestic jurisdiction. Madam President, we firmly believe that the emphasis of peacekeeping operations should be on the use of their political influence, as provided by the umbrella of the United Nations under which they operate, in order to support the parties to a conflict in the search for peaceful solutions. Therefore, UN peacekeeping operations must avoid at all cost becoming part of the conflict. Similarly, and in contradiction with the affirmation contained in the concept note prepared for this meeting, we consider that UN peacekeeping operations must not be deployed for addressing the root causes of conflicts or for managing said conflicts themselves. Nevertheless, we believe that peace efforts promoted by the United Nations in conflict-affected societies must be accompanied by a simultaneous and sustained effort on the part of the international community to provide, upon request, cooperation and economic assistance aimed at addressing the root causes of conflicts, such as poverty and inequality, in order to ultimately achieve a truly lasting peace. And in this regard, we take this opportunity to highlight the need to pay greater attention to the unintended consequences of the application of the measures envisaged under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter on countries where United Nations peacekeeping operations are deployed, especially the humanitarian implications of such measures, given the need to ensure that the populations of these states subjected to them are not victimized either directly or indirectly or deprived of their own means of subsistence and development. Greater efforts should be made to ensure that such measures implemented in several of the countries where UN peacekeeping operations are deployed do not become a factor that would prolong conflicts and thus further exacerbate challenges on the ground, including with regards to the implementation of the mandate entrusted to relevant UN peacekeeping operations. Moreover, we also stress that the role of UN peacekeeping operations should be oriented towards the affected state, not as victims in need of protection, but as a fundamental and sovereign actor in the definition and implementation of a long-term peace and development project in accordance with their right to choose their political, social, economic and cultural models and their respective national plans and strategies. Madam President, we emphasise that each peacekeeping mission must start with a plan that's fully coordinated with the national government through a clear, realistic and achievable mandate and in consultation with the troop contributing countries. Only in this way can the credibility and efficiency of the mission be guaranteed. We call in this regard for greater interaction between the countries hosting peacekeeping operations, the countries contributing military or police personnel, the Secretariat and the Security Council in the design and implementation of the mandates entrusted to each of the missions, including their exit strategies, in order to ensure that they act in a coherent and concerted manner at all times, which will certainly result in a better implementation of their mandates and the attainment of the established goals. Before concluding, we would like to emphasise that the Special Committee on Peacekeeping Operations, the C34, is the body empowered to address in a comprehensive manner all issues pertaining to UN peacekeeping operations, including those of an emerging nature, as well as the most relevant forum for discussing new concepts and policies or for providing guidance with regards to UN peacekeeping operations. Consequently, we consider that a possible review on the future of all forms of UN peace operations as provided for in Action 21B of the Pact for the Future should be led by Member States within the framework of an inclusive and transparent intergovernmental process under the umbrella of the General Assembly. And finally, we conclude by acknowledging the work of the United Nations peacekeeping operations in spite of the complexities that they face on the ground, as well as their real impact on the civilian population and their positive contributions to the maintenance of peace and security. In this context, we categorically reject any attack or threat against civilian and military personnel of UN peacekeeping operations, while expressing our full solidarity and paying tribute to the memory of those who have lost their lives in the performance of such laudable missions. We stress in this context the importance of putting an end to impunity and ensuring accountability for these attacks when committed against those individuals who on a daily basis demonstrate their commitment and dedication to peace in the field under the flag of our organization, the United Nations. Thank you.
Of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela for the statement.